The title race will go to the final day of the Premier League season after Arsenal won 1-0 at Old Trafford to record just their second victory in the league since 2006, so what is a very difficult ground. But it was by no means easy. It was by no means comfortable. It weren't pretty. It weren't awe-inspiring. But it doesn't matter, because all that matters is those precious 3 points. This is the Arsenal Raw Reaction Show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is our Raw Reaction Show, the show in which we join you the morning after the night before, 8 a.m. every single day following an Arsenal fixture. We are here discussing it and talking about it in all its glory, not for Man United. Certainly was a interesting afternoon, is how I would describe it if I'm being, what's the word, magnanimous? I don't think that's the right word. I think it's a little bit more humble about yesterday's performance, which was not, one that's going to go down in the ages. It may indeed still be on the highlight reels for future clashes between Arsenal and Manchester United, but it is not going to be one in which I think fans look to as kind of an example of what Arsenal should be doing in the future there. It was not a great display. It was not a brilliant performance. It was not something that I will look back on fondly as an experience I enjoyed. But ultimately, all that matters was that we got the 3 points. And that was really key. We're going to jump into the chat box, of course, and say good morning to those joining us live. Thank you for those of you, of course, that are listening as well on catch-up and watching on catch-up. You are appreciated. Paul, good morning to you, to Barry T, to Paul, other Paul, Glenn, Louis, Barry. We've got Amira, Stephen, Damien, Cena, Carlton, CT, Chris, Kaiser. We've got Matt G, Franklin, Martin. We've got Kevin, Roy, Jose, Dave, Red Star, Justin, Jason, and more of you guys and girls in the chat as well. Thank you. Damien, RIP to our inverted quote marks here. Gorgeous away kit. I had to wear it today. You know that the whole thing about the wager we have together as listener and host is still on the line for the final day, but that may not happen. And so I thought, we wore it for the last time in the flesh yesterday, so I should probably honor that by wearing this shirt today as well. And again, a massive thank you to the very generous listeners that thought it would be appropriate to buy me in. So thank you. Anyway, they just know me so well. Let's jump in, shall we? Please make sure, if you haven't done so already, to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here with those notifications turned on so you never miss a show. We're trying to reach, of course, 1,000 likes every single day. We've managed to do that over the last however many weeks as Arsenal continue their title push. So please continue to help us push towards this target of 1,000 likes by just pressing a quick click onto that thumbs up. So thank you. Right. So Manchester United 0, Arsenal 1. Not what we expected, but the same result. All the same, and that's what matters, is the results. Without question, it was the results that mattered. I don't care how we got it. I don't care that it wasn't brilliant. I don't care that Man United were arguably slightly more, I guess, attacking than we were. I don't care, quite frankly, because all that matters was the 3 points. Now, I think we'll go into it perhaps more in the second part of the show when I jump into the chat box and we have more of a chat. But if you'd have said that Man United would have had more shots than us on the day, I would have said, nah, you're crazy. Absolutely crazy. So, yeah, I think that from the perspective of Arsenal fans, they're frustrated with the performance. They're frustrated with that, but they shouldn't be. You just got to put that to the back of your mind. You can't even think about it. I wouldn't worry about it. If this was like 15 games ago, or 10 games ago, you know exactly what people would be saying. You'd be going, if we play like this against City, we're not going to get anything. Or if we play like this against the way at Spurs, if we play like this against Liverpool, we're not going to get anything. That's what we would be saying, right? That's exactly what we would be saying. But it doesn't matter, because all we've got is one more game after this. All we've got is one more game. And that's all that matters, is that Everton fixture. And they are in great form. They've won 4 of their last 5 league games, believe it or not. But they have, obviously, they're free. They haven't got any pressures. They're just going to play out their final game of the season. And we have got the intention of going into that game to win and try and hopefully take on board any slip up that Manchester City do. But we'll come to that a little bit later on. Focusing in on yesterday's game a little bit more. Havertz's genius yet again finding United napping, or rather finding Casemiro napping, as the German provided yet another big assist. Another goal contribution in another big game for Arsenal, scoring against Chelsea, assisting and scoring against Spurs, now getting a huge assist against Manchester United, and Trossard, of course, being another goal scorer in another big game from the start. I don't know how many times I have to say this because I think I keep saying it because it reiterates the point, but suggestions that Trossard is only good coming off the bench, or even that he's better coming off the bench, I think have been entirely muddied over the course of the second half of this season. And he has been an absolutely integral part of this side and starting 11. And another goal from close range. It did, I'm not going to lie, it did make me think that Aston Villa chance, it reminded me of that close range. Sadly, it was not the same result as it was here in that game, but he managed to get the ball into the back of the net and was absolutely overjoyed to see that go in. And you know what's really funny is that when that ball hit the back of the net, I was thinking about putting it into the blog. I've just got this feeling that it's going to stay like this the whole way through. And it was interesting because I think Arteta said after the game that he felt like the worst thing that happened to us, ironically, was the goal. And it was the worst thing that we did to our performance because it seemed to change us after we scored. And that for me was really, really important still to come through a difficult display and a spirited United response and still take the clean sheet. And much of that clean sheet, of course, was down to the performance of William Saliba, who was stunningly good. And once again, for I think the second game running, I think I put him as my man of the match against Bournemouth. He was a man of the match here as well. What a tackle on Garnacho to just stop him straight in his tracks as he ran towards the box. United were toothless. Yes, they had chances. You could argue they were maybe slightly the better team, but can you really be described as slightly the better side when you look that poor in attack? Yes, you can create more chances, but Højlund, how much money has been spent on that guy, by the way? They talk about the fact that, they've spent loads of money and they've got loads of injuries, but at the end of the day, you've spent how much money on this centre forwards? Like 70 odd million quid. You've got Anthony on the bench, you spent 100 million quid on, or 80 million quid, 100 million euros on. You've got one of the most hyped wingers making his first start after how many years of coming back in Diallo, who's benched your 100 million euro player. And then Garnacho, of course, who I do like, to be fair. I really do like Garnacho. I think he's a talented kid. I think he gets a lot more stick than he deserves. I do quite like the guy. And I just think that those three in particular, and Kobbie Mainoo as well, who's been hyped up beyond all measure, it was a really underwhelming display from that side of things. And Arsenal didn't really have to get out of second gear. So for all the whole, United fans going, "Oh, look how bad you are. You only beat us 1-0." I mean, that tells you how far Manchester United have fallen. It's not all Man United fans have to say is, "Oh, you only beat us 1-0. Yeah, we beat you. So shut up." It's as simple as that. Arsenal were the better side over the course of however many games, and we've not got the result today. Yeah, maybe it was a bit more closer in terms of the two matching up against one another, but there was only one team that you ever felt like was going to win this game because of how strong they are defensively, and because ultimately when the big chance came to us, we took it. And there should have been other chances I think that we should have took. I think Declan Rice is unfortunate. A brilliant block, I think it was from Wan-Bissaka. There was a couple of headers from corners that should have definitely been better. There were a couple of counter-attacks that we absolutely should have done better from as well. Martinelli, who I'll talk about shortly as well, had a great chance too. It's not like we didn't create. But the irony of Man United fans turning around saying, "Oh, you only beat us 1-0. You thought you were going to smash us." It's the same result. Same amount of points go to each team. So, frankly, couldn't give a flying you know what. One of the concerns I did have coming out of this game was Thomas Partey's performance, which I thought was concerning. Now, he should have been off for me at half-time. Again, it's one of these moments where I think if Arsenal go on to lose or drop points in this game, I think we're starting to point fingers at Arteta again for not being proactive enough with this change. You've got Jorginho on the bench, and Partey was having a really poor game, making consistent mistakes, slipping, being a bit risky. The penalty shout that Manchester United is not a penalty because ultimately it's Partey that gets stood on by Diallo, ironically, in that moment. And actually that's how he gets hurt, because he steps on Partey and goes down rather than Partey. But it was risky to do the movement that he did. It was a really poor display. And I wanted to see a little bit more proactivity from Mikel Arteta to change him, and he didn't. And ultimately, that I think shows perhaps that Arteta's got a faith in the guy. It would be surprising still, I think, if he left in the summer. He still could leave in the summer, but I think they might let him see out the year of his contract if indeed Arsenal don't get any offers, which haven't materialised thus far to what Arsenal would be looking to try and get. But Partey's performance was a concern. And, thankfully, he's been very good in the previous 3 matches and been really key to those performances. But there are always going to be these types of displays. And I think maybe Arteta can be a bit better in recognising that sooner and making more of a change. And also, I think, and I wrote about this post-match, it shows that in the summer, this is why I've been saying central midfield for me remains to be one of those key things. By the way, Declan Rice also didn't have a particularly amazing game either. I think it would be unfair just to talk about Partey. Rice wasn't particularly having one of his, storied top performances either. So it's not like it was just Partey in the middle. Rice made a mistake or two as well, and the midfield in general didn't really dominate things. And there was so much space at times for United to kind of drive through. Positionally, we looked a bit off. There was certainly nerves about this performance. And so, yeah, Partey probably was the lowest. If I was to do a player ratings, would probably have been my lowest rated player. But it wasn't just him. Of course, he was having a poor day, but it was him that stood out, I think, beyond the others. One player I did like the display from coming off the bench was Gabriel Martinelli. I really enjoyed his spirited performance. I think it was the right change to make at that moment in time. Obviously, United were very much the team in the ascendancy. Trossard's role in the side was perhaps being marginalised because of that. And Arteta recognised the fact that on the break, we would need the speed. We would need that pace in behind. And for that reason, Martinelli, I think, coming off the bench was certainly the right choice. And I was encouraged by that display. It would have been great for him to score. It would have been great for him to recognise that there was a couple of passes on when he was on the break and he didn't take them. Instead made the wrong decisions, as we have seen so many times, even when his best seasons, we've seen him take the wrong decisions too often. But I really did enjoy a lot of the encouragement from Martinelli's substitute performance, which was much more positive, and I was very, very happy with that as well. Saka is said to be fine. Arteta says after the match, after, of course, he came off with an injury. Again, it was one of those games where Saka couldn't really get into it. There were a couple of moments, a nice couple of combinations on the right-hand side, but didn't really threaten. Some similarities, I think, maybe to the Anfield game earlier on in the season as well. Sometimes Saka just struggles to get into certain games, especially if we're not on the ball, especially if our midfield isn't clicking. And it didn't yesterday. And Saka, I think, sometimes suffers from that. And I think that perhaps was a knock-on effect of it. But I'm sure that he'll be back for the Everton game and showing his best at the Emirates on the final day of the campaign. Last thing I just want to mention is this wonderful clip from Kai Havertz, who was asked about what he, about supporting Tottenham on Tuesday. And he says that he'll be the biggest Spurs fan, which I think people have taken far too sensitively, by the way. Some fans are like, how could he say that? I'm sorry. Havertz isn't an Arsenal fan, guys. Sorry to break your hearts. But most of the players that play for Arsenal aren't Arsenal fans. They don't have the same allegiance and passion for this club like diehard supporters do. You would never see us turning around saying, oh, I'm going to be the biggest Spurs fan now because I want Spurs to win. He's not a Spurs fan. He's not an Arsenal fan. He's an Arsenal player who wants to succeed and wants to win. And for him to succeed and to win, he needs Tottenham to win. He needs Tottenham to win or at least draw against City. So I found it very strange that some, I don't know, stick your chest out and shout as loud as you can type of fans were getting a bit frustrated with Havertz saying what he said. But I really don't know why people would be so offended by this because, as I say, he's not you. He's not an Arsenal fan. He's an Arsenal player. And he wants Spurs to get a result in midweek and we'll be hoping that Spurs do. And let's be honest, for all the diehard passion that we can have, all that we can have around, this club, we want Spurs to get a result in midweek. There is not a single Arsenal fan in this world that should not be hoping that Tottenham get a result in midweek because we all are. We should be hoping that Tottenham get that result. It sucks that we have to. It really does suck that we have to. But at the end of the day, We need them to do us a favour. And hopefully tonight, Liverpool batter Aston Villa, because it means obviously that it gives Spurs such a greater incentive to take the fight to City and could still get a top 4 place at the end of the season. Obviously, I hope that they don't do that. But of course, there's a chance if Liverpool beats Villa tonight that there is a much greater incentive for that top 4 place. So very much so tonight, we're hoping that Liverpool can do Arsenal a favour. I don't know if it's Liverpool's final home game. I don't think it is. Their fixtures are, they play Aston Villa tonight and they've got Wolves on the last day. So sadly, it's not Klopp's last home game. Had it have been, there would have been a great incentive to try and win that game. But yeah, Liverpool need to. To be fair, I mean, Aston Villa are only, they're only 4 points above Spurs. So if they do lose this game and go to 37 games played, Spurs, of course, can respond and go within a point of Aston Villa on the final day. On that final day, Spurs play Sheffield United, whereas Aston Villa are playing a very informed Crystal Palace, who have won 4 of their last 5 games. So that's also something worth considering. But yeah, didn't get the rather sad reactions to Havertz's thoughts there. We're going to go to part 2 now and tackle plenty of your questions and queries and thoughts from the game in the chat box. So let's do that right after this. Okay, we're going to jump into the chat box first to Paul, who says, Tom, a shout out to the Denver Gooners. My son-in-law was in Denver 10 days ago and was gifted a Denver Gooners scarf. I'll be wearing it next Sunday at the Emirates. Keep believing we can do it. I've got a lot of, very connections to the Denver Gooners as well. A good friend, Andy from the Gooners pod, is based in Denver as well. So I wonder if they are in the same place. That would have been great. But certainly that was fantastic to see. Kunle says, spot on, Tom. Partey's lack of pace was really evident in the second half with Saka's misplaced pass intercepted by McTominay, who left Partey for dust. Knowledge says every person associated with Arsenal in any way will be hoping that Spurs win and do well this week. Jalali says, Tom, non-Arsenal related question. Did you see Chelsea's latest scam, allegedly? They have sold their training ground to themselves. I'll have to have a look into that, Jalali. I've not seen that story yet. I've been too distracted with Arsenal. Shabazz says, hey, Tom, I felt dirty for days after hoping a Man United win a few weeks back. Now I will be never feeling clean again after Tuesday. It's the reality of a title race, I'm afraid, Shabazz. It is just the reality that we find ourselves in. We are hoping that our worst rivals continue to get results that go in our favour. United did us that favour against Liverpool, of course. We are hoping that Spurs can do us a favour this week as well, and that they have something, of course, to play for. Matt G says, Tom, do you think there was a genuine chance our game with United could have been postponed due to the stadium leaking? Old Trafford is falling to bits, as the saying and the song goes. Daniel says, if Spurs win, I'll make a small donation to a children's charity in the Tottenham community. I think that's a good way to support them without going full Spurs. I think that's very nice, Daniel. Omar says, this will be good. Want to know how Tom manages to justify that Martinelli had a good game yesterday, an attacker who couldn't make a good of his one-on-one chances, even on the pace with the older players there. I mean, it's a strange one. Omar is, of course, one of our resident, what I like to call catcher-outers. There's a few of you guys that love to try and see how I can, I was going to say, worm my way. That's a weird way of putting it, but kind of like, try and get out of certain. I think Martinelli had a decent sub-performance yesterday, and actually there was a lot of encouraging things about his decision-making, about his display. He's still not on fully form. He's not on, top form whatsoever. He's still returning to action. He's still lacking regular minutes, but I think it was important to see that performance as well. But one of our resident catcher-outers, Omar, there, certainly not doing himself too much justice. Kieran says, getting the win was all that matters at this point, but think we need to stop forcing Tomiyasu to invert as much as he does. He forced Rice out wide a little bit too much, and neither was as effective as they were in swapping zones. I would have been intrigued to see, if we would have been better, in regards to kind of having a Zinchenko in that position. Would that have been more effective? Because United were really toothless, so it wasn't necessarily like they were threatening us in many way. Would it have been better for a Zinchenko? And it was interesting because I think it was Paul, in our previous show that was saying that I'd like to see Zinchenko because of the impact that it has on our left-hand side. So I think in those moments, actually, there is sometimes more of a call, more of a shout, more of an incentive to to use a Zinchenko in those positions. Ty says, hey, Tom, did you see that Everton have confirmed they will need to sell players in the summer? Would you put in a bid for Pickford? Good with his feet, a great shot stopper and can catch with the second Golden Glove as well. I'm not sure. I think Arsenal would need to go more so for a goalkeeper that's going to be relatively more comfortable being a number 2, and Pickford I don't think would be that as well. Moo Point says, I hope Big Ange calls up Arteta on how to beat or draw against City. I hope that they are. I mean, you know that's never going to happen because Ange Postecoglou only knows to play a certain way. Now, of course, earlier on in the season, we did see Spurs get a result at Manchester City, drawing 3-3, playing the way that they play, scoring very late on. So I think it'll be very much more in the same of what we've seen before. Tizer says, hey, Tom, did you see that Everton have confirmed they will need to sell players in the summer? Oh, sorry, I've already done that one. That's a problem with not scrolling up a little bit more. Wes says, I'm so proud that the team has taken it to the last game. If it was City to do it, and at least they've had to earn it rather than being handed to them. And that's really important. And obviously, we got a win, of course, on the final day as well. That is also going to be very, very important. We don't want to hand it to City. We want to push them. We want to have challenged. We want to have gone as far as we can. And I think that, once again, and not only, I don't think I've mentioned this yet, but yesterday's win meant that Arsenal went to the most Premier League wins that we've ever had as a club. And as Arteta said in his post-match press conference, he said, that's not progress, that's history. Arsenal's season this season will go down until it is next broken as our highest number of wins ever in a Premier League campaign. Not only that, but we've scored the most Premier League goals in this campaign than ever before. There is no argument that anyone can come up with to suggest that we are not moving in the right direction, that we are not under the right custodianship, and that we're not going in a direction that sees us on the cusp of some really great things. At this point, the shouters are just shouting into the ether and looking like, I've said before, something of a mental asylum's escapees at times. It's kind of mad. It's stubbornness. It's real stubbornness not to see what we're doing for what we're doing, which is progressing in a very, very impressive way. CJ Dan says, great result yesterday. I think Arsenal should look at bringing in Kudus this summer. I think he'd be a great signing, mate. I absolutely agree with you. Rob says, when Spurs draw, I love this when rather than if, will goal difference come into it? It could be a crazy final day with both Arteta and Pep subbing strikers to out-and-out score each other. Smith or Eddie Vieira, Trossard, Saka, Kai Havertz, Jesus and Ramsdale up front. Of course, if goal difference comes in, let's say that they draw against Spurs. That means that Arsenal will go into the final day with a 3-goal difference advantage over Manchester City. So Arsenal will need to win by a scoreline that is not, obviously City will need to win as well, but the scoreline cannot be in favour of City by, more. I just have a quick look at the number of goals both teams have also scored, because that obviously does come into account as well. So far, Manchester City have scored more goals. So Arsenal cannot afford to score for the goal difference to be level either. So if Arsenal win 1-0 and City win 4-0, City will win the league if they draw against Spurs. So Arsenal will need to score plenty of goals and continue to score goals and continue to press and continue to bang them in on the final day. So yeah, that's really important to pick out. Luke says, Tom, did you notice that the Trossard goal was offside and that the ref was an Arsenal fan? I mean, no, Luke. I mean, you're clutching at straws like you were the other day. D says, if we were in a Spurs position, how would you want us to approach the game? Play to win, or would you prefer us to manage the game, lose to prevent our rivals potentially becoming champions? It's a really hard question, D. It's if Arsenal were in the position where they're still chasing something like a Champions League qualification, of course I'd want us to win. If the game was meaningless for us, then I'm going to have a very different view. But the fact of the matter is, if Liverpool beat Aston Villa tonight, Spurs can go within 1 point of Aston Villa on the final day of the Premier League season. Now I'd much rather Aston Villa got 4th, despite some crazy commenters in my chat box the other day. I'd much rather Spurs got 5th to Aston Villa getting 4th. I'd much rather Villa were in 4th. I'm not Unai Emery's biggest fan, as you very much well know, but I'd much rather Unai Emery and Aston Villa got 4th than Spurs. But at the end of the day, if it was the other way around, Arsenal would have something to fight for, being that top 4 place. So I would want us to win. I would want us to beat Spurs. I almost said Spurs' title challenging rivals. Imagine that. Imagine a world where Spurs are title challengers. The only other year that's happened was, of course, when Leicester won the league. Hitcher says, morning, Tom. You're missing the point. The result was important, but what about this scenario? Spurs get a point and then City hammer a hapless West Ham. We could lose this on goal difference, of course. But it was about getting the result. Yesterday's result was way more important. You know, if we'd have been a little bit, if we could have gone through that game yesterday and been more risky, tried to score more goals, we may have ended up dropping points. There is no argument at all that suggests that Arsenal should have risked the title by trying to score more goals yesterday. There's no argument. You win. Winning is the most important thing yesterday. Get the result and then take it to that last game. And then whatever happens, happens on the last day. So there is no criticism from me. There is no, real concern about ultimately, how we got the 3 points yesterday, because all that mattered was getting those 3 points. So no, I'm not missing the point at all. Arsenal just needed to win yesterday, and that's exactly what they did. Adwaith says, for some reason, I was disappointed the way we played, and then I realised the games where we dominate United and end up on the losing side. Exactly. The amount of times we have done that and still managed to lose those games is mental. So I think what some people are missing, because of, I don't know if it's arrogance or hubris or what, but some people are forgetting the fact that ultimately this was a ground where we have mentally struggled year on year on year on year. And the players will absolutely be aware of that record and aware that this is a ground that Arsenal have just simply struggled to get a result in for the best part of nearly 2 decades. And that does come into it. Absolutely mentally, that plays a part. Even however bad United are, your record against another team and the pressure that there was clearly had an effect. I underestimated it. I went into this game very comfortable. I went into this game very confident. I went into this game thinking that we would score plenty of goals. But at the end of the day, the players just managed it. They managed the game and they got the 3 points, and that's all that matters. Alvamod says, it comes down to the games we played against each other. Arsenal would be winning, having 4 points against City. I thought it was goals scored, wasn't it? I'm pretty sure it's goals scored that's the next one. It's not head-to-head records, unless that's changed. But if goals scored are equal, which on the final day of the season, so what would need to happen is, if say they draw against Spurs, we've got a 3-goal advantage. How many goals would they need to? We would need to score. I don't think it can happen, can it? Because they're already in the lead by 2 goals and they need to close the goal difference. So for the goal difference to be level, they would need to score more goals than us. And for that to happen, therefore, the goals for on their side would be more. I guess if we won, obviously the opposition can score goals. I'm forgetting that fact. So I guess if we were to win 4, or does it have to be 5-4? So we would have 94 goals scored, and our goal difference would be 62. And then they would then have to win. If they won 3-0, that would put them. No, it'd have to be one more. We'd have to win 6-5. Right? This is crazy. We'd have to win 6-5. We'd be on 95 goals scored. We would have a goal difference of 62. And then they would have to win 4-0, which would take them up to 95 goals for, and a goal difference that is also 62. I think then, does it go to goals against, or does it then go to head-to-head record? So at that point, so yes, we'd have to win 6-5. They'd have to win 4-0 for the goals difference and the goals scored to be level. At that point, I don't know if it goes to goals conceded or whether it goes to head-to-head. Amberley seems to think it's head-to-head, in which case, obviously, that would be in Arsenal's favour. So there you go. Yeah, head-to-head, people seem to think it is. It goes to head-to-head next. So if we win 6-5 against Everton and City win 4-0 against West Ham, we win the league. So there you go. Good to know. Good to know. But ultimately, if they draw, if they draw their game against Spurs and we win 1-0 on the last day of the season against Everton, which would take it up to a goal difference of 62, whilst they would be on a goal difference of 58. If they won 4-0, they would win the league. If they won 3-0, we would win the league, and so on and so forth. So it's very, very interesting indeed to look at it that way. Z says, if they drew one game and we beat Everton 1-0, they need to win by +5. No, they don't. They only need to win 4-0. If they beat West Ham 4-0, that would put them on a goal difference of 62. If we win 1-0, we would also be on a goal difference of 62. and but they would then have scored more goals. So because of the fact they scored more goals, they would win the league. So basically, let's just win against Everton like 27-0, and they can draw one of their 2 games, and we won't have to worry about it. So there you go. Bulgarian Gooner says, why do I feel like Kanji will score an 87th minute screamer tomorrow in a 1-0 win? Yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting. It's going to be very interesting indeed. Lucas says City will win the league. And I mean, the ironic thing, and Lucas, I've said from the first day of the season, this was my prediction. My prediction was City will win the league. And the irony is though, even though that was my prediction and the prediction of 99% of people around there, the irony is that you'll still get people battering Arsenal for not winning it. Even though, as I say, City were everyone's favourites. City can and probably are still most likely to win the league this season. And at the end of the day, that's the reality. But that's what we always thought would happen. So if it does end up happening, will I be disappointed? Absolutely, I'll be disappointed. Will I be angry? No, of course I won't, because Arsenal have managed to pick up a ridiculous number of points. I think it's now 49 from available 54 that they've managed to pick up, which is a joke. We all know that's a disgusting number of points, and to still not win the league, of course, after that is mad. But that is the reality of a title race in 2024. Is that's what you need to do even better than that. I mean, we've ironically picked up one more point than City in the 2024, but we still remain behind them. Jabu says Arsenal will win the league. It is written. Rob says still hearing Arsenal fans saying it wouldn't be good enough and blaming Arteta. Oh, there's always going to be, idiots out there, mate. There's always going to be crazy people out there. You can never discount the spectrum of views that you're going to get. So you're always going to get some loonies out there, of course. Ty says this is off Sky. How teams are separated if they finish on the same points and goal difference, goals scored head to head. Most away goals in head-to-head meetings, playoff at a neutral venue. Yeah, it's mad, but we won't be worrying about that. Lucas says, if we don't win the league, I'm not going to be angry. I'm going to be proud with this Arsenal team. I'm willing to give Mikel Arteta one more year to prove he can win it. This is the bit I don't agree with. I agree with you on the whole, not going to be angry. The whole one more year to prove he can win it is such a strange take, I find it, and so what are you going to do? So say the same thing happens again next season. We finish 1 or 2 points off Man City in Pep's potential final season. You're telling me you're sacking Arteta for finishing 1 or 2 points behind City next season if he doesn't win the league? I think that's mental. That's absolutely crazy. I don't know. I mean, I think rival fans would look at you and think, you're mad, like absolutely mad to be in that position, because there's no justifiable way you can justify getting rid of him at that point. I've said for time that the next contract for me over the next fair few years will determine whether or not we should stay with Arteta into the foreseeable. But he's earned the next 3 or 4 year contract. He's absolutely earned the next 3 or 4 year contract. Every year that we've been under Arteta, every full season he has had, he's improved upon the previous season's points tally. We've only gone in one direction under Arteta. We're only moving closer to higher and higher points accumulations and potentially a title. So to say that we could be like 1 or 2 points, and Clive, by the way, who says, Luca, what a plonker. No, that's not all right. Luca's entitled to his opinion. I'm able to challenge it, and I'm doing that without being abrasive towards him. I can say I think it's mad. I can say I think it's crazy. I don't agree with it. But no, let's not get personal. There's absolutely no reason to do that. From the point of view that you would get rid of Arteta if he didn't win it next year, I just find it mad, because you can only move in one direction. You can only exist in this space where Man City are here, or Liverpool are here, where Chelsea are going to get better, or Aston Villa seemingly are going to continue to spend, and it's only going to get harder. So to say that he has to go, I mean, I don't know who you're bringing in to think that they could then take that and take that to a title. At no point has anyone been able to explain to me who they would want, why they would want them, and how on earth that person takes what Arteta's done and suddenly takes that to a title race. It's staggering to me when you see those things. Let's go to, Lucas says he has to win a trophy next year. Right now he should stay, but he has to win something next year. If he doesn't win nothing next year, in 2025, he has to go. That's my opinion. I'm looking at it and going, this team should be winning trophies. This manager should be winning trophies. But I think it's mental. Bayern Munich, have not won a single trophy this season. They're moving on from Thomas Tuchel and they're a little bit stuck, right? Yeah, moving on from the coach despite not winning anything this season in what is, to be honest, a pretty freak year. They very nearly, very, 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 very nearly knocked out Real Madrid from the Champions League, despite it being on paper the worst Bayern Munich side we've seen in years, right? And despite that, they're now scrambling for a manager. They wanted Julian Lopetegui. He's picked West Ham. He's picked to go to West Ham. Even despite having interest in Lopetegui, they wanted Julian Nagelsmann. He signed a brand new deal with the German national side. Hansi Flick, who of course went to Germany and was pretty darn awful, is supposedly very keen on that. But I think that this idea that he doesn't win anything, so he has to go. I just don't know how anyone could justify it. I don't think there's ever been an argument for that, and I don't think anyone can justify it in any way, shape, or form. Omar says Arteta is the man for Arsenal. The ones asking for a change are in a football game. It's kind of the video gamification, as sometimes they like to describe it as. There's certainly a level of that a lot of the time. I mean, have people not seen what Chelsea and United and teams like this are consistently changing coaches and that's it? And Lucas says aim for elite sport, win a trophy. What do you think, Arsenal? Do you think Arsenal aren't doing that then? Is that it? Do you think Arsenal aren't aiming for that? Do you think Arteta's just content finishing second? Do you think they're content to just not win things? Do you think that's the aim? It's just, finish as high as possible. But if we don't win anything, it doesn't really matter. No, if they don't win anything, they will be gutted. I think you're dangerously close to the whole raise your standards, bingo card, if you like, as Luke's pointing out in the chat box. The whole, the raise your standards bingo card is. I think that's probably where you're getting at. I'm taking your opinion for face value. I'm not an Alvamod. I don't think Luca's a troll in any way. I think he is absolutely serious in his view. And there are a lot of people who have this view that I will take seriously and have a debate with, because I know they can debate it. I know they can talk about it. I know they can do it without being abusive. And to be fair, the only people that have been abusive, by the way, is people that disagree with Luca in the chat box right now. So if you want to call the guy a troll, if you want to call these people with these opinions that jump into the chat box genuinely, with genuine thought and with genuine intention to have a discussion about it, then you're the ones in the wrong. Not them, you. You want to take the opinion for face value. Luca has done absolutely nothing wrong by putting that opinion into the chat box to create this discussion. He's not said it with any malice. He's not trolling in any way. And if I just scroll up a little bit more, he says, Tom, loving the content, just subscribed. Luca clearly doesn't agree with me and my opinion, enjoys the content and subscribes to it because we're openly accepting that there are other people with different views. All right. So it frustrates me. Don't go down the pathway of seeing a different opinion to yours and just going and gunning for these people, right? Because it's, if they're being disrespectful and abusive, I get it. Absolutely 100%. But if they're being sincere and they're just raising their point and they want to try and get that across, I'm happy to challenge it. I'm happy to discuss it. But don't buy into the whole calling people plonkers and calling people XYZ. It doesn't, it's mad. It's mad. There are people that shout and scream and are abusive and disrespectful. I get it. They exist. They're out there. You can't do anything to stop them existing. They're there. They're going to always be there. But for the people that don't have a genuine conversation, that's why we do our phone-in shows and we get different points of view on and we challenge those points of view and we talk about it. That's what this is here for. So there you go. Ashton says, just like if I said you were disrespectful to Martin. When was I disrespectful to Martin Odegaard? The guy's world-class, Ashton. Goodness gracious me. A man says, what's wrong with wanting to win? The aim of the game is actually to win. You play to win. You can be happy for the team's performance, but still feel bad that we haven't won anything. And I don't think at any point that view has not been on the table, man. I don't think at any point whatsoever we've said that to have that view is not okay. Because I know that that's where I am. I want us to win. I know that's where Arteta is. He wants to win. I know that's where Arsenal as a football club, where the owners are, they want us to win. And they will be gutted if they have won nothing at the end of this season. They will be absolutely gutted. And if they don't, they will go again next season and they will try to win it. They will go again next season. They will be pushing to try and win it harder than they did this season, with hopefully more investment, with better players. It's without question the aim of this club to win everything. That is what they want. If you don't believe that it is, I can't help you because you've not been listening. You've not been watching. You've not been taking in what the messaging, what the words are, what the actions are of this club. It's not just about what they say. It's about spending more money than they've ever spent before. It's been on bringing in Declan Rice. It's been on being able to extend players' contracts like Bukayo Saka and William Saliba and Martinelli and Gabriel and all these players, Martin Odegaard. You can go on and go on and go on. Ben White, etc., etc. The ambition, every action, every decision is done at this football club with the aim of trying to win the Premier League title, with the aim of trying to win the Champions League. Everything this club does is with the ambition to do that. If you can't see that, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what else you need to see. If the only thing that will convince you that that's the case is actually if we win it, that's too little too late to jump on the train. That's far too little, far too late to jump on board and to recognise what this team is trying to do and what this club is trying to do. So, at this point, there's nothing more I can say to convince people otherwise. I can definitely have jumping debates about it, where we are or what should happen moving forwards. But until we start to regress significantly, until we start to significantly go backwards, there is no reason to not continue on this path. Absolutely no reason whatsoever. Robert says Pep is a genius, but he never had to strip a club down and rebuild it as a rookie. Mikel Arteta has. Talking to a City fan with connections, he says that Pep is so impressed with Mikel. I'm not surprised that the entire footballing world, every single club on this planet, and I include Manchester City in this, because when Pep moves on, they will need to replace him. Every single club in this world, and I count Real Madrid in this, who eventually will have to move on from Ancelotti. Every single club on the planet would want Mikel Arteta to be their club's next manager. There is not a club on earth that would not want Mikel Arteta as their next coach. So when Real Madrid move on from Ancelotti and when Manchester City move on from Pep, there is not going to be a club in this world that would not want Arteta as their next coach. There just isn't one. I'm happy to be open to, and I'm happy for you to tell me who that club is. But I challenge you. There is not a single club on this earth that would not want Mikel Arteta as their next manager, because there isn't a better option out there to be a club's next manager than Mikel Arteta. He has taken a club like Arsenal that were in the midst of just being this sleeping giant. I think understates it. I think a sleeping giant is an underestimation of how big of a club Arsenal are during the years that they were out of Champions League football, and of course eventually falling into a place where we fell out of European competition as we tried to rebuild. It is as simple as that there is not a club on earth. Z says Real Madrid. You tell me, if Ancelotti moves on, and he will move on. He will come towards the end of his time with Real Madrid at some point. Tell me who would be a better manager to take over than Arteta. Because you can say Pep, I guess. Would Pep ever go there? I don't think so. Klopp's obviously taking his sabbaticals. I don't know if he's done in football or not. I think that if Real Madrid could choose a successor and they could have anyone they want to Ancelotti, I think they'd pick Arteta. I think they would, because I think they can see the progression. And you've got Xabi Alonso as well, of course, who's probably alongside Arteta very much so in that same bracket of this generation of coaches that is coming through. They are the top two, is Xabi Alonso and Mikel Arteta. Let's go to Kim says, what do you think about the wage cap thing? I think it's probably a good thing, but unfortunately, it's again another example of where the horse is already bolted. So how much of an impact is it going to have? Leigh Bloomer says, Arteta in 4 years, challenging managers with decades of experience at the highest level is crazy. I say this time and time again. This isn't just like people turn around and say Arsenal have spent X amount of money. They often lie. They often give you the wrong figure. I will give you the right figure. It's £590 million before bonuses. It adds up to about 620 to 30-ish million pounds, around that figure that Arsenal have spent. And we don't know how many of those bonuses have of course, been activated during the time that Arteta's been here. We're going up against not only the best manager in the world in Pep Guardiola, we're going up against a team that has invested since he arrived £1.2 billion, And I think that's also before bonuses as well, from when I was doing the figure counting the other week. That's what we're up against. And yet, supposedly, if we don't do it, we need to raise our standards. That's crazy. Absolutely mad. Wes says, my only other disappointment this season is if we don't ultimately win the league is our lack of intent in the cup. Was it a lack of intent? I always know this point comes up. This whole lack of intent thing. We got knocked out by Liverpool in a game that we should have won. And we got knocked out by West Ham in a game where we played pretty poor. We rotated the side. West Ham, a ground where we have notoriously had difficulties at, and we did take revenge on them, of course, in the league with that 6-0 win. But the lack of intent. So you're telling me, Wes, that we don't have an intent, or rather an intention, to win those? Because when you say things like our lack of intent, you're arguing that Arsenal don't have an intention of trying to go far in those cup competitions. And I would argue that where has that come from? Oh, get your bingo cards out, people. Liam's our next contestant. He's got 2. Liam's managed to get himself 2 bingo cards. Get them out, people. Where's mine? I think I did write one up the other day. I don't know if it's my study is pretty busy at the moment, but you've got PR channel. Here we go. Just going to tick that off, and then he's doubled down on this with the on the Arsenal payroll. So we've so far got Raise Your Standards, PR channel, and on the Arsenal payroll. Triple up. 7-7. 7. Got 3 sevens. You hit the jackpot, mate. Well done. So that's the difference. Luca, genuine opinion, putting it forward, open to challenge. Liam, don't be Liam. It's just a rule. Just don't be Liam. It's a good rule in life. Wonton Soup says, part of the reason Arteta has been able to do what he's done is because he genuinely loves Arsenal, and I love that we have a manager like that. Boss says, if Madrid came knocking at the door, do you think Mikel would go? Because I feel that he is going to be another Wenger. Like Wenger, of course, had the opportunity to do that and turned it down. I'd be very interested in that. Very interested indeed to see if that was the case. Sugar says, Tom, did you watch Turkish on AFTV? He was brilliant. He also very much doubted Arteta, but the pendulum has fully swung for him. He is now fully backing Mikel and says there shouldn't be any doubters. I assume that's what you meant. For sure, Sugar. I haven't watched it yet, but Turkish, I've always maintained. I know people have different views about AFTV. I get it. We've talked about AFTV in the past quite, broadly and critically and praisingly at times. I've always maintained that Turkish is an absolutely lovely bloke. And the couple of times I've met him and spoke to him, he's been an absolute gent. And I've had him on the channel. Brilliant conversationalist, and fair play to him. And the thing that makes Turkish so good when he creates content is that you can tell that he's genuine about it. He's not one of those that's trying to do it for the attention. He's not, faking any opinions. What he says is what he thinks. And I love that because that accountability in his opinion there to be honest and say, I was in this place and now my opinion has changed. It's swung and now I'm here. And for anyone to doubt that is crazy. That is mad. And sadly, you got people like Omar that says move away from AFTV. No, I won't, because it's a platform that has multiple individuals on. If you don't like AFTV for whatever reason, you're entitled to do that. But there are individuals on that platform, whether you like it or not, that are very good. I think James, who comes on the channel regularly, is absolutely sensational. Graham Brooks, of course, who's also been a part of the channel in the past, sensational with his analysis. I end up forgetting people, of course, and I don't mean when I don't mention anyone's names. I'm not doing that purposefully. I forget that. But in particular, James, Graham, and Turkish have always been absolutely fantastic. So don't paint people with a brush just because they're part of a channel or a group or whatever you don't like, because you can start to go some very dangerous places if you start to, tarnish people just because they belong to something that, you don't particularly like. Dean says, I think we need to move on from Partey. He looked slow in the Man United midfield and they blew past him whenever they wanted to. I mean, it wasn't his best game, but he has had some really good games. And it's worth pointing that out. So that's important. Crucial says AFTV opened the door on all of this, so let's have it right. I mean, it's not a point you can disagree with. This you listening here would not happen as it is without that. Would not happen without that. Gutema says when we don't have Charles Watts around, we have Tom. We need a top backup like this. I mean, I take it. Charles is lovely and is a brilliant content creator, but what's the rule of the channel? We say no backups. No backups. We just have competitors. Liam saying he doesn't want Spurs to win in midweek. It's ironic, isn't it? I'm the PR channel, but Liam doesn't want our title challengers to drop points because he's too proud. Stick your chest out, puff it out, shoulders back, really shout, make sure people can hear you, and He doesn't want them to lose. Goodness gracious me. Mira says, let's be honest, if Arteta is the same number of trophies as Klopp at Liverpool in the same number of years as our fans will be still saying it isn't enough because domestic cups mean nothing. Still only won Premier League and Champions League. The difference between obviously Liverpool and Arsenal is when Klopp took over, not only 2 years prior were they very close to winning a title under Brendan Rodgers, of course, but they already had a number of players that he was willing to keep and hold on. And not only that, but some of those players that he sold, like Coutinho, for instance, went for hundreds of millions. Arteta was never in that position when he took over from Arsenal. And the position that he took over from Arsenal, they'd been on a sliding slope for year on year on year. And that besides some of the young kids that were at the club as well, not established stars like Coutinho, or established stars that were going to be stars as well. Klopp's got, had his own stars come through, like Trent as an example. But you could not have looked at Liverpool when Klopp took over and looked at Arsenal when Arteta looked over it in two different ways. That's why the Klopp example always crumbles, because as soon as you look at the state of both clubs when both managers took over, you start counting up differences that are as long as your arm for one compared to the other. So that's why it always crumbles when you start to look at those two as potential arguments. Daniel says, anyone who hates Spurs more than they love Arsenal is not a true fan. Same for the Spurs fans who'd rather lose, even if it cost themselves the Champions League. Loving your own club is more important than hating rather. 100%. Daniel, I could not have put it better myself. If you are a bigger hater of Spurs than you are a bigger lover of Arsenal, there's a problem there. There's a real problem there. Your hatred of Spurs does not make you more of a fan of Arsenal. It doesn't. And people are proving that point this week. And for Spurs fans, if they have something to fight for, which they do, should Liverpool beat Aston Villa this evening. And even if they don't, there's still obviously a chance, of course, that they could drop out of the top five even between. If they were to, say, lose to Manchester City, all of a sudden, Newcastle win against Manchester United. They're 3 points behind them with a superior goal difference on the final day of the season. Chelsea as well, level on goal difference right now. If Chelsea win their game in hand, they've got Brighton, of course, up next, who haven't been particularly great. It could be very different for them. So if it was a case of Arsenal had nothing to play for, absolutely nothing at all, and that losing or drawing against a side that were competing with Spurs for the title meant that it would cost them the league, it's a very different conversation. But for Spurs, Spurs have something to fight for. And that's the difference. Sam says, hi, Tom. If you're a heavyweight contender and Mike Tyson's around, you won't win anything. In another time, we win this league. I don't necessarily agree with that, because you can still win. You can. But you need a lot to go your way. You need a lot of luck. And you need to be near perfect and hope for a miracle. And that's what we're doing at the moment, is we're hoping for a miracle. We've been nearly perfect in the second half of this season in particular. And we're looking to try and find that little thing to go our way toward the end of the season. And it's a big, big ask. But ultimately, if we end up losing the league to the greatest Premier League side that we've seen since its inauguration, and it's a 2-point gap, my goodness me, we've done... we've done bloody well, and we are very much moving in a very positive direction. I think we might end the show there. I'm kind of doing this for Liam's benefit. He might have an aneurysm before if we carry on too much longer. But thank you for listening. Thank you for the differing views, of course. I just want to give Luca another shout out, and apologies that some people did come back at you far too harshly. But thank you to those of you that have listened. Do drop a like on the video, of course, and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here with those notifications turned on so you never miss a show. I'll be back with you tomorrow morning, of course, for the build-up to tomorrow's huge game in North London. North London forever, right? So let's keep those fingers crossed that the miracle on the other side of the Seven Sisters Road will come to be. We can only keep on hoping that it will. But thank you to you all. Have a fantastic start to your week. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful, of course. And as always, up the Arsenal. You won't catch me saying the other words, but up the Arsenal.